Hey everybody, it's me again bringing it to you live from Jerusalem. So I got a question for you guys. Do you think that stopping someone and frisking them is racist? Well, this article by Al Jazeera kind of thinks it is. The title reads Israelis Stop and Frisk Law Blatant Racism. The recent legislation is a form of collective punishment towards Jerusalem and its youths. That's what it reads. So it continues and reads, walking towards Jerusalem's old city, it has become an ordinary sight to witness Israeli soldiers patting down several Palestinian teenagers simultaneously, hands pressed up against the wall, heads facing forward, and legs spread. Thanks to recent legislation passed by the Israeli government in February, the stop and frisk law allows Israeli soldiers to body search any passerby, regardless of their behavior, in a location that is thought to be a target for hostile, destructive actions. It goes on and says it is blatant racism. Anyone that merely looks Arab, and apparently Israelis know what Arabs look like, is taken to the side. That's what Jamil Farid, Palestinian resident of Jerusalem, told Al Jazeera, who's 26 years old. He works in the old city, and he just says it's unbelievable. Number of Israeli forces deployed that made him extremely unsettled. They're crazy. They would shoot me just like that. All they need is a glimpse of a doubt. Well, about what Jamil is saying, that everybody there are on pins and needles, it's true. I can show you guys a bunch of incidences that were caught on camera where 1 second it's a regular normal day for the soldiers, and it's just a regular day in general, and then a second after you just get a stabbing, and you get a couple of stabbings in less than and it's over in less than a minute. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of natural that the soldiers there are on pins and needles, I guess, right? Another Arab that was interviewed for this was Jamil, and he said, "We have a problem now. Young men who have no intention to fight in that manner start to become conscious in front of the army. When I'm walking, I start thinking not making any sudden movements in front of the soldiers. For example, if I shriek about forgetting something at home." You have a problem? Wait. You have a problem. What about this last terror wave? Is that not a problem? Is that not our problem? Dozens of people injured, a bunch killed by stabbings in Jerusalem and near Jerusalem. I'm not even talking about all over Israel, but you guys are not the ones with the problem. You guys don't have a problem. We both have a problem. So it goes on and says, the past 8 months of sporadic alleged attacks by Palestinians, I love how they say alleged, the past 8 months of sporadic alleged attacks by Palestinians against Israeli soldiers and settlers have been met with a forceful crackdown in the form of point-blank shootings at alleged attackers and unarmed protesters, military checkpoints, body searching, and heavy deployment of troops throughout the city. So, what do you guys expect us to do? Do you guys have an answer? What would be a proper response to a wave of terror that claimed the lives of tens of Israelis and injured hundreds? What is a proper solution? What is a proper response for that? If not searching people more, if it's not deploying more troops, if it's not cracking down on more people, if it's not making more barriers and more checkpoints, what's a proper solution? What's a proper response for something that is called a wave of terror? What's the proper response? And again, I love the way they say alleged attacks, as if all these incidences weren't caught on camera. It's just, I don't know. I don't understand why they would use that term. According to the law, soldiers can inspect any individual in specific locations without having to answer for their actions. Well, yeah. I mean, the ones that go out and stab innocent civilians don't go out with a poster or with a sticker on their shirt saying, "I'm a terrorist. I'm giving you a reason to stop and frisk me," right? These are everyday people. They don't look different. They're not monsters. They don't have 3 legs. These are ordinary people that just get in their mind that they wake up in the morning and go stab some innocent civilians. So, I mean, obviously, that's what should happen. This has resulted in what rights groups describe as openly racist treatment toward Palestinians who are being body searched, sometimes aggressively based solely on their appearance. Now, I can tell you 100% that in Israel, and this is gonna sound funny, but in Israel, us Israelis, it's so clear to us who's Israeli, who's Jewish, who's Palestinian, who's Arab. I mean, obviously there are those that don't look, they don't look the look, but most of them do. If it's hairstyles, if it's clothing, if it's posture, I mean, all these things together. I've been here since 2003, 2004, and I can tell you that if I walk down Jerusalem streets and I see an Arab, I know he's an Arab. Don't ask me how, but like maybe 80 to 90% of the time I'm right. So I'm sure that that the border patrol and the soldiers and the officers know how to distinct between Israelis, Arabs, Palestinians, someone that looks dangerous, someone that looks suspicious, someone that doesn't. And let me tell you, there are hundreds of Arabs walking in Jerusalem as if nothing's happening. Okay, so I mean, this article is making it out to look like they're being persecuted in every street and on every corner. That's not true. Anyway, so it goes on in saying any Palestinian who is passing by is subject to being searched. Israeli soldiers would make them stand from between 15 minutes to an hour. It is not just that they search them, but the way they are being searched is humiliating. Said Nazreen Alayan, a lawyer from East Jerusalem. Okay, so I think that if a soldier stops, or a border patrol or an officer stops someone that looks suspicious for 15 minutes, rarely an hour, they have absolutely nothing to do with them for an hour. They can't be preoccupied for an hour on one person, so that's just ludicrous. But I think that stalling someone for 15 minutes is a small price to pay for saving innocent lives. Again, you guys can tell me that I'm wrong, but I think it's a small price to pay. And again, not every Arabs, they don't stop every single Arab for 15 minutes, okay? It's only the really suspicious ones, the ones that look shady. You know what I'm talking about, especially whoever's looking, who's ever watching from the United States. You guys have your own, shady characters. So what I want to talk about what I just read is the humiliating part. About the humiliating part, it is true. I do think that if there is a suspicious female that they want to stop and frisk, I think that first of all it should be done by a female soldier slash border patrol slash officer, and I think it should be done in a discreet area, not in the middle of the street, and not where everyone can see. The Arabs have a really big issue with honor. And when the teenagers see their own women being defiled and being mistreated, it just pisses them off more. So I do think that there is room for that. I think it is happening. I think that they do take them to the side, and I think that women do it. But but if they don't, I think it's justified that. I think it's right for them to do it. So that's about the humiliating part. I wouldn't want anyone, I would never undress a female Muslim in front of everybody just because it's not decent. It's not humane. Alian goes on and says, today they hear a person speaking Arabic on the phone, they swarm around him or her in seconds, and that person has reason to fear for their life. That is total bullshit. You can walk all around Jerusalem. You can go to the mall. You can go to college. You can go to university. You can go to restaurants. You can walk wherever you want, however you want, in Jerusalem, especially in the old city, with a phone, and no one will swarm you. Okay, that's just absurd. There are plenty of Arabs, that walk freely. We're integrated. There's really a lot of coexistence going on, especially in Jerusalem. So I don't know. I don't know what she meant by saying that, but it's just not true. Okay, it's just not true. What happens is that if a suspicious person walks around and an officer stops him, worst case scenario, they report it to the police headquarters, and the police headquarters run a background check, and then they see that there's reason to detain this guy. That's the worst case scenario. Most instances, what happens is that they stop this Arab, they stop this individual in the middle of the street, take his ID, run a background check, see if he's okay, and then they just go on their way. But that too, I understand the problem with that. I study in a college where there are a lot of Arabs, and it kind of hurts me to see them, the ones that are sitting next to me in class. I actually saw one or two of them getting checked in the middle of the street, and these are people that are studying with me. So it kind of felt I kind of felt uneasy about it. I kind of felt bad. So I understand that aspect, but for speaking on the phone, that's just stupid. Arabs, Palestinians' lives here are not that in danger. Okay, so I don't know. Anyway, so my thoughts on this. Forget about the article, but my thoughts on this whole situation about frisking and stopping and cracking down and making life more miserable for the Palestinians. My thoughts are that on one side, you have a very dangerous crowd of people that live in East Jerusalem that are responsible. I got it right here actually. In October, that were responsible for 620 attacks. 485 of them being at the West Bank, and you have in November you have another 326 attacks. In December you have 246 attacks, and in January of this year you have 169 attacks. Yes, the numbers are going down, but just to show you the numbers, I mean, there's barely a day that goes by here in Jerusalem or even in Israel that there's not at least one attack somewhere happening. So I'm interested to know how you guys see the situation. Do you think that cracking down is the right answer? Do you guys think that we're too tough? Do you think that it's justified? Let me remind you that this last terror wave was crazy. You have, on October 4th, you have a 15-year-old who got stabbed next to the Lions Gate in the Old City. On October 7th, you had a Palestinian woman that got stabbed and critically injured a man next to the Lions Gate, again, near the Old City. On the same day, you had a 15-year-old kid tried to stab soldiers in Abu Tur neighborhood in Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem. On October 12th, you had a few incidences where in the morning there was a stabbing attempt next to the Lions Gate in the Old City. Later that afternoon, next to Ammunition Hill in Jerusalem, a female Palestinian stabbed an officer. A while later, two kids at the ages of 13 and 15 also stabbed two Israelis. I think I did a video about that. And in the evening of that same day, a terrorist tried to steal a soldier's weapon from him on a bus in Jerusalem. October 13, in a neighborhood here in Jerusalem, two terrorists opened fire and stabbed Israelis on a bus, killing 2 and injuring 16. Later that day, a terrorist drove his car into innocent civilians, killing 1 and injuring 2. You got October 14th, a terrorist attempted to stab but got shot and killed next to the Damascus Gate in the Old City. Later that evening, a terrorist stabbed a 70-year-old woman and injured her severely. On November 23rd, you got 2 girls at the age of 14 and 17 who actually stabbed civilians in the shuk, in the market that's nowhere near East Jerusalem, and injured 4 people altogether. So yeah, I mean, on November 29th, terrorists stabbed a soldier near the Damascus Gate. Later that day, another terrorist stabbed a 40-year-old tourist. I mean, there were these months where every day there were at least a couple of stabbings or shootings going on somewhere in Jerusalem or somewhere in Israel. So if that's not enough of a justification to stop and frisk and search someone, I don't know what is. I do understand how frustrating it must be to be, a Palestinian or an Arab who has not even an ounce of violence in him, to be stopped, to be interrogated. I understand the frustration. I do. I really do. I mean, I walk to the mall and they always check my bag, and it's frustrating for me. But I'm saying that from a really, privileged stance. But again, I do understand the frustration. I do understand the reality of Arabs and Palestinians, but I don't see any other solution. Again, I read to you the numbers. I read to you the instances. Too many stabbings have occurred. Too many killings. And again, these kids or these teenagers or these terrorists, they don't walk around with name tags saying I am a terrorist. They don't walk around, dressed in a special kind of way. These are ordinary people that one second they're okay, the other second they're responsible for killing innocent civilians. So you can naturally understand why soldiers and border patrol, why they're on pins and needles and why they stop more and more people. So I'm trying to give you guys 2 sides of the coin. From one side, yes, this is a fucked up situation, and something's got to be done. And on the other side, I understand their frustration. I understand what they're going through. So what do you guys think? I would love to hear if you guys think that we're being too harsh, if you guys do think this is racism, if you guys think that this is a justifiable reaction, a justified reaction to the situation. And again, thank you for watching. I hope you really like this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. I got a Twitter account, a Facebook account. Please check those out. I would love it to hear what you guys say and what you guys think about this whole situation. And yeah, until the next time. Peace.